She, like, fire in hand is like, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. That's up to you. Hey, everybody, this is Kat.
And this is Rachel.
And you're listening to the Smut Peddlers podcast, a show for people who love books, especially when there's smut. We discuss our likes, our dislikes, and share all our favorite moments with you.
Today we're talking about Empire of Storms and Tower of Dawn by Sarah J. Maas. So grab your favorite beverage and get ready to burn with us. Okay, so we are in part 2 of our tandem. We are reading in the romantic order, doing the tandem read for Empire of Storms and Tower of Dawn. So today we're going to cover Empire of Storms chapter 14 through 16 and Tower of Dawn chapter 8 through 12.
As a recap from our previous section, if you watched it and took a little pause between, we like to do a little recap just so that we know where we're at. You guys know where we're at going into this episode because we're doing a lot of reading in between. So Chaol is hanging out with the Coggin. It's him and Nezrin kind of over there. They're trying Chaol's big thing right now. Nezrin is hanging out with her family, trying to like learn a little bit more about her family. She is a family person, as we know, so she is very much going and hanging out with her aunt and uncle. I'm fairly certain that's who they are to her. Chaol, right, while doing his like physical therapy, is trying to gain information about Rifthold. So he knows an attack has occurred on Rifthold, but he has no idea if Dorian is alive or dead at this point. He knows the witches are in Rifthold. That's kind of all. He has like no idea what's going on. Aelin, Aedion, and Lysandra, they made it to Ilium. And they made it where the little folk kind of told her to go. So it's this temple that's there, and we kind of get this idea that Aelin is planning to stir up a little trouble in this area. So this land has been taken over by Otterlin's soldiers, and my opinion is that her goal is trying to like get this location back under Terrasen rule in as the most politically correct way, so Darrow doesn't say like, hey, you're doing treason. And instead he's like, oh, she actually cares about her people. Because as we left off, Darrow is not our favorite. And he thinks that Aelin is just some kid who doesn't have the best interest of Terrasen in mind. And so he's really pushed back against her. We have Rowan and Dorian. They're on their little boat in the middle of nowhere.
Sailing away.
They've just been sailing forever. So, as you know, Dorian escaped. Him and Rowan. Rowan has been using his powers, his wind powers, to kind of push them this whole way. And their goal is to get through the Dead Islands and to Skulls Bay. And in our last scene, Rowan and Dorian had a heart-to-heart. And it is when Dorian requested that Rowan teach him some magic.
It's very exciting.
Yes.
I like Rowan is like, I'll do my best.
Yeah. It pretty much says
do
that
what I can
help you with kind of the basics, but the reason he was able to teach Aelin is because their powers kind of overlapped so much. And they meshed very well. As we know, they're carry-on, so that's not the correct word.
Yeah. It is. It's carry-on. There
it is. I was like, carry-on is...
It's close.
A very specific thing, and if you know what it is, and I'm not going to describe it to everyone if they don't know. We're going to pretend.
They're definite. Well, we don't want them to be carry-on.
Nope.
We want them to be carry-on.
Carry-on. Yes. New characters are similar to part 1. They're all kind of the same. They're big for like the big thing. We have Irene. We have Hafiza. And we have the Coggin. So we have the Coggin and their siblings, all the siblings, who are going to be the Coggin at some point.
Yeah. So we're getting a lot more, like, as you read more and more in Tower of Dawn, you get a lot more of the lore around, like, the Kagan and the siblings and how Hafiza interacts with them. And I think this time around I think I said it last time too, like after the first recording or whatever, that like I'm enjoying it a lot more. It's so much better as a tandem read. I think that it's so much better as a tandem read.
You read Tower of Dawn first and then Empire of Storm, yeah?
I read Tower of Dawn first because I knew that I didn't like Chaol after Queen of Shadows, and I just wanted to get his book out of the way before I like finished the whole series. Mm-hmm. And I don't regret reading it that way. I think that I would have really struggled to get through Tower of Dawn if I hadn't read it that way. But I think that it's better this way. It feels more connected. Like, it feels like I am reading a whole story versus like reading part of the story and then going back in time and rereading another part of the story, but just from a different place. Mm-hmm. Because even when I was reading through Empire of Storms after reading Tower of Dawn, it still kind of felt like I kept looking back at Tower of Dawn and trying to figure out where certain things were happening, like what events in this book were happening at the same time as the other book. So just reading them through in chronological order is very nice. I love it.
Yeah, I am very much enjoying this.
I like that way of like watching stuff too as well. So like even when, like, if we watch the like Marvel movies, there's stuff that I'll like change when I watch things, when I rewatch stuff, so that I can watch it in chronological order rather mm-hmm. than like in release order of stuff. Because
you pick up on certain things. You like watch one movie and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I remember that from this movie.
And then you add like all the TV shows in it. That was like the golden era of all the Marvel stuff, is when like you'd watch a movie and you'd have to watch the movie like the right weekend or the weekend that it came out, because the episode that's going to release of like a TV show that's on like whatever channel is going to have some sort of tie-in to whatever happened in the movie. So I was like, I have to watch everything right when it comes out so that I don't miss any of the like little Easter eggs from things. I loved that so much. So like mm-hmm. doing it this way is, I think I just am having that bias of this is the way that I like to consume content. So I'm like, yes, this is better.
Yes, it's very good.
And Irene's great.
We love Irene.
To be very clear, my issue with Tower of Dawn was always with Chaol. It was not with like Irene is the main reason why I'm like, yes, you should still read Tower of Dawn because it's great. Mm-hmm. Irene and Hafiza, and like I like the political conversations and structure of the book as well. Chaol just is really annoying sometimes.
Yeah, and he's definitely, granted, you're getting like little pieces of him reading mm-hmm. it this way, so like you're getting a little bit of him like, oh, okay, he's like getting a little better. Like,
yeah,
he isn't just like hate myself, hate myself, hate myself, hate myself, hate myself.
It is a lot to deal with, to be like, because I think so right now we're only on chapter 8, which like isn't very far into the book. And then by the end of this episode, we'll be through chapter 14, which I think is still like 150 pages. It's 180 pages or something like that. Mm-hmm. So that's like a third of the book. And just now we're starting to get to the point where he's like getting over the I hate myself, I hate myself, I hate myself.
Yeah. And blaming things on other people. That was a big one.
Well, that's the main issue that we have with Chaol and the way that he hates himself, is he hates himself by lashing out at other people, which makes me angry. Mm-hmm. And then he gets angry because he's like, well, I couldn't protect you. And I'm like, dude,
not your job.
Just relax, please. We didn't
Not
need you to
your
do that.
job.
It's not what you're here for. All right. Let's jump into it. Starting with like chapter 8 for Tower of Dawn. Irene is going back to meet with Chaol. So like she still hadn't made the decisions yet about like whether she was or wasn't going to go back. She does make the decision to go back. She's still having like her internal battle about Caution and her relationship with him and how she has to, you know, she's in a tricky spot where she and him used to kind of like be a thing, and now his sister's dead, and she's like, well, I still have to try to keep him at arm's length and treat him not the most nice so he doesn't get any ideas, but also his sister's dead, so I can't just be a bitch, because that's really doubling down on the suffering.
She cares about him
absolutely
on an individual sense. Like they were friends as well. She
wishes that they could just go back to being friends, but she knows that like she wants to keep her distance because she doesn't want him to get any ideas of like, well, maybe it can she's like, we can be friends, like maybe it'll turn into more. And she's like, nope. So she goes back to like meet with him, and they're talking about
meet with Chaol.
Yeah, she goes back to like meet with Chaol, and Chaol and like Nezrin are like fighting with each other, like having an argument that she kind of walks into, which is awkward. Mm-hmm. Do you remember what they were arguing about? Oh, never mind. I remember what they were arguing about.
Was it she didn't come to dinner?
She like, yeah, I think it was that she didn't come to dinner, and they're also just
they're in like a weird spot.
They end up having this conversation where like she's kind of trying to say like, I'm gonna tell you like this is how the treatments are going to happen, and like this is how we're going to go about his like treatment plan or whatever. Nezrin's like asking a bunch of questions and answering questions for him and being like, I can help, like, you know, what do you, like we when we need to move him to the bed and stuff, like I'll stick around. And Irene is like, no, you can go, like we can do this without you having to be here. You don't have to like
Chaol also
mother
like,
him.
That was the one time it's like the first time where Irene sees how Chaol is responding to other people making a fuss over him, and that's Nezrin. Like she's really like, let me do that for you, let me do this, let me do that, and he's like, no, I want to do it on my own. And Chaol is still like, him and Nezrin are kind of like not butting heads at the moment, but they're not really like in sync with each other. Like they're having she kind of was trying to make moves on him so that they could do like extracurricular activities, and he was like, I'm not into that right now. Granted, he's paralyzed, so like, don't blame him for that. Like, you know, do your thing.
I'm so fine with it.
So they're in this like weird, the only way that they used to communicate when they had issues was they would sleep together. Like that was their we are both having issues, so let's sleep together. And then it kind of like went from there. And so Nezrin's like pretty much like, I don't know how to deal with this, and Chaol doesn't know how to deal with it either. And so yeah, they're kind of in this weird dynamic at the moment. And I think in this scenario, Irene notices it and picks up on it and is kind of like politely dismissing Nezrin.
Yeah.
So that Chaol doesn't have to do it.
It's also like a waste of her time.
Oh, 100%.
Because she's there to be the, like, she's also there to kind of spy and try to make inroads with the, like, Coggins family. Mm-hmm. So she gets, like, kicked out, basically. She's like, all right, well, I'm going to go. I've received invitations from, you know, friends and family and stuff. I will go do those things.
Yeah, and at this point, I think Sartak also has like talked to her. She's going off to see her family or something. He had talked to her at some point.
Yeah.
Not necessarily as like a, hey, come do this thing, but she's trying to like be friendly with the Coggin, like you said. Like she's talking to Cashin, she's talking to Sartak, she's talking to like, she's trying to like mingle within the family as well. So Irene and Chaol start their first like official I would say, physical therapy session.
Physical therapy session. Magical therapy session.
Yes. One thing that Irene notices, like right off the bat, is that she notices he's still muscular, which I thought was funny.
So great.
But she does also notice that his leg muscles are deteriorating. He hasn't used them in, God, how long has it been? Like a month, 2 months at this point?
Yeah.
Because they traveled for a week or two. Like, he was at the castle for a bit after he was paralyzed. Then they traveled. So, like, it could have been up to, like, 2 months at this point that he hasn't been able to use his legs. So, outside of trying to figure out what is causing this, she also is like, hey, we need to exercise your legs because it is important that they don't atrophy.
Yeah. Which,
IRL, if you stop using something, it will atrophy. So if you hurt yourself, make sure you're still using the thing unless your doctor says otherwise, because you do not want your muscles to atrophy. It is not a pleasant experience.
Yeah, so they're having this whole conversation and she's talking about like, okay, this is what we're going to work on and what we're going to do. And while they're having this conversation, they're both like grilling each other. Mm-hmm. So like she literally straight up asks him like, did you have slaves? Because your king had slaves. Like, did you own any? And he's like, no, nope, never. And I think this is also when he tells her that like one of the first things that Dorian did when he became king was like get rid of them. Like, no, there's no
outlaw them.
Yeah. Get rid of slavery. Like, that's not a thing anymore. And then he's like snaps kind of right back at her with like they start asking each other questions about like Philippe, because she mentions like he said something about like you could like do the treatment on the bed rather than doing it where they were. And she's like, I'm not going to go in your bedroom without like Captain Philippe here or her permission. And he's like, it's not like that. And she's like, sure, okay. And then he's like, cool, great. What's your deal with caution? She's like, no.
She's like, don't worry about it. We're not talking about that.
I do like what she says, though, because she says specifically, I have no plans to seek such a life for myself. And then, I mean, she brings up a really good point of, like, realistically, the main reason that she doesn't want that life for herself is because of the way that political structure works. So, like, once one of the Kaghan's kids gets selected to be the next Kaghan, what will likely happen first is any of the other siblings will either be killed, and if they're women, they'll probably be rendered infertile. And then the same thing for like the Kaghan's sons, their wives, the same thing would happen, because you gotta like nip that possible uprising in the bud right out of the gate. And she's like, don't want that for myself. And I am like, yep, that totally makes sense. Absolutely. Because she's like, the only are either like marry him, pray to God that he becomes Kaghan, or be like totally cool with the fact that maybe she'll get murdered or just like
or
sterilized.
If she has a kid, that her kid would then get killed.
And she doesn't understand why that one of the sisters or whatever is like, she's pregnant right now, and she's having like Irene's having her whole internal dialogue of like, how is she not freaking out?
Yeah, you get this background, like there's this painted story that the Kaghan and the way they live and like this whole area is like picture perfect. So like even the Torre,
they don't have slaves, do whatever they want. Like they've got religious freedom, like they all get paid well. It's like a utopia of.
But then there's this tiny little like clique.
Their political structure,
and you're like, what?
The goal of the Kaghan is to have a bunch of kids so they can like duke it out almost to the death.
To figure out who the next Kaghan is going to be?
And all of the other kids are going to die, basically. And I'm like, what the
Previous to the current Kaghan, though, that's not how it happened. It was just like they chose one, the siblings like lived. But then the current Kaghan, he had to pretty much fight his brother to the death to become Kaghan. So like it could go any direction. They have no idea.
It's likely, though, that when you're raised in that kind of structure that,
Mhm.
like, you have to compete with your siblings to be the best, it's not the most crazy thing in the world that you'll end up under
Fighting.
that amount of pressure,
Yeah.
fighting with your siblings.
Oh, 100%.
And Coggin's also, Caution, there we go, is also, like, really far down the list of possibilities. Like, he's got older brothers, he's got an older sister, all of whom have been more invested in vying for the throne than he has. So she's also, like, very realistic about the fact that he's probably not going to become Coggin, which makes all of the fears very much more real and more realistic possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
So I get it. I'm like, yep, that makes sense. Why would you do this to yourself? They talk about healing and his training, and they start to work on. She starts to, like, work on his body magically as well. So, like, they're doing the physical exercises, and then she's using, like, her magic to be able to, like, help and kind of detect where the issues are. She's
trying to find like the pinpoint
like, where
spot.
it is.
So like even think about it in real life, if you hurt a specific vertebra, there's a possibility that from that point on, like that's where your injury starts and everything below that point is unusable. So she's trying to find where in that spot has cut off now the use to his legs. And yeah, I think the really cool part is that she describes her magic as like she like winds her magic like up his feet through his legs to try to like find where healthy tissue is or where like non-healthy tissue is, like where is there a break point, where is whatever. It's such a cool little, I don't know, it's such a cool way to do magic to try to heal.
She does, like, while she's doing this, she does start to sense, like, what it is that's blocking, what it is that injured him. And she, like, senses the magic. And she basically just full stops and is like, you have to tell me everything about this now. Because she's never felt anything like it. It's terrifying. And this is when, like, Chaol tells Irene basically everything that he has to. He includes, like, information about the word gates, word stones, the word hounds, the Volg, Erewhon, the princes, and the callers. So just like, here's the whole download of like.
So this is what we were fighting in Rifthold.
Yeah, so like this is what we were dealing with, and she doesn't get any information of about the keys and like about Dorian being captured or
he also doesn't
theory that like the king was also like actually captured and not really himself for those years.
She doesn't even tell him that this occurred at the king's hand, like Dorian's father. Like she kind of he takes that part out and doesn't actually tell her exactly what took place. He just kind of says, yeah, so it was dark magic of the Volg that attacked me, but didn't say like who or what the scenario was.
He does tell her that, because she's like, how are you alive at all? And he tells her that he was protected by a talisman that a friend gave her, which is the Eye of Elena. And she kind of figures out that all of this happened when Aelin Galathinius destroyed the castles, because she's the one that kind of says like, okay, she's linking all of the like timeline and stuff that she knows together of like how he got hurt, when he got hurt, kind of likely what had happened and who probably was involved or around when that was going on. So like she makes the connection that it's probably to do with Aelin. And he mentions that Nesrin was involved as well. And also kind of is like, this is also when he tells her like, this is why you need to fix me. Like, I need to get better so that I can go back and help them. I am here while they are still trying to figure out how to fight and raise an army and get like ready for this. But I need to get better so that I can go back and help them, because this is what's coming and I need to be there. Um,
She starts to trust him a little bit more. I feel like over time
yeah.
she's learning that he's not a piece of shit, that he's fighting on the correct side, in her opinion, um, against this kind of dark magic, which is nice.
Yeah. He also asks her if there's a risk to her in healing him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he knows that it's important for him to get back, and he wants to get back and wants to get healed as much as possible. But he doesn't necessarily want it to hurt anyone else.
Yeah.
And she like can't give him any information. He's like, she doesn't know anything about it. So
Yeah.
she has to like go and research in the library to try to see if she can get any more information about it.
She makes it seem like, because he asks, like, is it alive? Is there something inside of me that's like alive and doing this? And she's like, it seems like it's like an echo of something, like it's an imprint or a tattoo, or like it is just the shadow of something that existed and doesn't necessarily actively exist currently.
She also tells him, like, that she also plans to return, that her plan is to not stay here, but to go, like, back to find people to help. She doesn't want to stay in Antica because she knows that there is like such a great need for healers elsewhere, which I love. I love her so much.
The world needs more healers.
The world needs more healers.
This is also where, like, one of my favorite interactions, because she's like trying to pry like emotional information from Chaol.
Yeah.
And Kale's like, we're not talking about that. I don't want to talk about that. Blah, blah, blah. I'm a man. I can't talk about my emotions.
I can't talk about my feelings.
And she's like, okay, so, sure, bud. I'm still going to get it out of you because it seems like your emotions are what's feeding into your injury more. So we're going to try to fix that.
She talks a lot about the fact that it's like, there's both a physical side, not to him, but like in her head, she talks about the fact that there's like a physical and also emotional side of healing. And she's like, God, I think the physical side is probably going to be the easy part, and the emotional side is going to be freaking painful.
Yes.
Because it's Chaol. So yeah, he has to deal with his baggage, and Chaol's not going to fucking do that.
Yeah, he pretty much like says to her, there is nobody that hates me more than myself. Like,
which is also like,
kind of
as
sad.
much as I dislike Chaol, I'm like, no. I feel bad when that one hurt me a little bit because I'm like, fuck, I'm part of the problem.
Mm-hmm. It's like the first time
he's him more than himself. I'm like, no.
It's the first time though. It's kind of where I'm like, there was obviously a period of time where I like hated Chaol. The previous book, I hated him in that book.
He deserved it,
stupid. He was being very selfish, and like all of his decisions, like, yes, he was still making decisions for like the greater good, but against his friends.
Sort of.
Like, his friends, they were pieces of shit, but everyone else was fine. Like, we're still gonna make good decisions for other people. Whatever. This is like the first switch where I'm like, oh, because at the end of Queen of Shadows.
Yes.
At the end of Queen of Shadows, he admits that Aelin isn't at fault for these things. Like, it was like, he was kind of being an idiot. So, like, he admits that, and this is another point where he's like, I'm mad at myself for even thinking that way. Like, this is, he's like teetering into the, oh, I don't hate you so much anymore. Granted, I don't like that you hate yourself, and that's still not great. We're trying to get over the self-loathing.
We're working on it. She's gonna have to work on it for him. So hopefully we'll get there. Yeah. But yeah, he says there's no one he hates more than himself. Hurts. So she goes to kind of decompress. She leaves and is like, I have a lot to digest now. Yeah. I hate this part so much. She goes to soak in the tubs underground, which are called the womb, and I hate it so much.
So the idea behind it is that Mother
just
nature,
a different,
like the mother.
I get it. I get it. Like, it does make logical sense. I'm not saying that it didn't, like, lore-wise, that it's not logical or that it's not...
It does sound like a beautiful place that I would love to go soak in a tub. Like,
yeah, but I'm not gonna go somewhere called the womb and be like, yeah,
I would still be down. These are soaking tubs underground. Hanging from the ceiling are bells, and as the water like drips, like stalagmite water drips, it hits the bells and it like sings.
Which is
and you
sick.
Sit
and
in
the
this
bells,
like
the bells are like brought there by the healers as they like pass their test or whatever. So like all of the bells are brought down by the previous like women and healers that have been through this, which is sick. Like, again, lore's dope. I love it. Also, I just hate the like Irene soaked in the womb. No. Please. Name it something else.
Fair.
Anyways, that's it.
This is where we kind of get the backstory of like her side of what she saw / felt when her magic went through Chaol. She notes that when she touched the dark magic that was inside of him, she felt like it awoke, like some kind of power woke up, and she was like not trying to tell Chaol like, hey, there's power inside of you that seems
some
alive.
Sort of living, powerful being in you. Maybe.
She was trying to make him like feel like this is just residual something. Yeah. It's a little scary. We don't like that.
Yeah,
I have a quote in here that I'm trying to figure out.
She could still see the probe of magic recoiling, still feel its repulsion from that demon-born power. The opposite of what she was, what her magic was. In the darkness hovering overhead, she could see it all. In the darkness far above, tucked into Silba's earthly womb, it beckoned, as if to say, you must enter where you fear to tread.
Scary.
And she just keeps hearing the darkness whisper, you must enter, you must enter. It's like beckoning her to be like, yeah, come get me. Come on. It'll be fine.
This scene also, like, the womb is considered their like sacred place. It's where they go to be alone. It's where they go to recharge their magic. It's where they go to kind of breathe.
It's like meditate, replenish. Yeah. It's a magic spa.
Yeah. So like if you interact with Vogue magic in someone that you're healing, you go there to kind of like replenish your soul.
Yeah.
A little bit. She runs into another student, I guess, of the Torre.
Yeah, I think
what would you consider them? Another
acolyte?
Acolyte. Yes. I think that is correct. Yeah. And that acolyte is sobbing. Something occurred. I don't know if we really know what happened, but Irene kind of walks up to her and holds her hand and kind of helps her like relax and pretty much explains, I think maybe
all we get really is that there was like a child. Like she just mentions that she was 3 years old. And that this woman who's crying says like, sometimes I wish that this power was not gifted to me.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, it's very reminiscent of all of our healthcare workers that are like, come home from working with kids in the NICU and stuff and having to deal with that all day emotionally and physically and mentally. And then be like, well, I have to do this because I have been chosen to have this sort of power.
Mm-hmm.
I can't not do anything with it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the weight of having to do something with it and having to be there for people is...
And having to be on. Like...
Why I did not go into healthcare. I don't have the mental strength to deal with that. Thanks everyone else who did.
Yeah, so Irene kind of feels for her and like sits with her, puts her hand like on her head, holds her hand, and just kind of lets her cry. She doesn't talk. It's just kind of like letting her counterpart know like, hey, I'm here. I see you. I understand what you're going through. You can be sad. Just know that I am also here with you and you're not alone in this scenario, which I thought was very touching. We then pivot back to Chaol's point of view. So we started with Irene's. Chaol kind of just wanders around the palace a bit in his wheelchair. A big
I
thing
think it's like a dinner or something.
Well, yeah, they go to dinner, but then he's also like he mentions passing by some of the guard for the Coggin because he has that like whole like I'm sad because I used to be the captain of the guard and I miss my guards, and like that person standing there for X or Y reason, and then this person standing there, like they're all in their posts, and he has this like internal like sad dialogue thing. But part of him looking at all these people was to look for like the onyx eyes, a ring, a necklace. I always call it a necklace. Choker. The
Torque.
Hit their onyx choker. He was trying to like see if the Vogue were here because he feels like something's fishy and he doesn't know what. And Nezrin is also kind of looking for this kind of stuff as well. But Coggin's not at dinner that night that they go and sit down at dinner. He's having dinner with his wife. And so it's just the kids. The kids.
The kids?
The kids. The Coggins.
I think he is.
Children.
He is at dinner. And he gets... Yeah, the Coggin is at dinner and just straight up refuses it when Chaol asks him. For the meeting.
Oh, I thought he asked the brother if he can meet with...
No, I think that's one of the later ones. When he asks the second time for the meeting, I think that's the next dinner that they have, where the Coggin's not there, and he's like, I need to meet with him. And he's like, good luck. Man's grieving. Man is with his wife, who is also grieving. At this dinner, he asks him kind of point blank, I was hoping to perhaps be granted the honor of a meeting with you. And he basically is like, talk to my chief advisor for my schedule. I have to go take care of my wife. Bye. And everyone at the table kind of like gives him like looks of like, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, my focus remains on assisting my wife through her mourning.
Yeah. And then he like pivots pretty swiftly. Is like, let's talk about your rooks. Those are cool. Nezrin makes a good joke, which I thought was really funny in this one. They talk about like Kadara is one of the prince's rooks.
Oh yeah.
Hussar like hates
the rooks altogether.
Rook. And Sartaq, they're all just like giving each other shit. Hussar is still sore that Kadara tried to eat her when they first met, Sartaq confided. Hussar rolled her eyes, though a glimmer of amusement shone there. Caution supplied from a few seats down. You could hear her screech from the harbor. To Chaol's surprise, Nezrin asked, the princess or the rook? Sartaq laughed, a startled, bright sound, his cool eyes lighting. Hussar only gave Nezrin a warning look before turning to the vizier beside her. It's so funny. And they talk about, like, flying Kadara, and I think this is, like, the first bit where, like, Sartaq and Nezrin are kind of talking to each other a little bit, and that they are joking with each other. I think this is kind of where she starts to get the idea of like, okay, like that's pretty sick. He's got a rook. That's cool. I would hang out with you.
I think this is also when Sartaq is like, oh, you want to meet a rook? Meet me in the area in the morning and I'll introduce you. Yeah, Chaol kind of like eyes up Nezrin too after
gives
like Sartaq, and he's like,
get on that.
Go talk, find information, go and talk to them. Sounds good. Do the thing.
Just a recap for everyone. Fleetfoot is still fine.
Oh yeah, Fleetfoot's good. We haven't heard about
just
Fleetfoot in a while.
Fleetfoot
But
check. Fleetfoot's still okay. We're all good.
Yeah.
So the next like chapter we get is Irene in the library. Hi, bud.
You're not Fleetfoot.
You're not Fleetfoot. So Irene spent the night in the library researching after going to soak in the womb. And there's an ominous storm outside, which is so great and not at all foreshadowing for everything bad that ever happens in these books. It's great.
There's never storms when bad things happen in these books. Never, not one time.
Nope.
Definitely
never,
not.
Ever.
I'm born.
What are you doing? While the storm is happening outside, she is just trying to get through like as much as she can before she has to like go home. She pulls out a bunch of scrolls that she was able to find, some of which were like tens to thousands of years old, or hundreds to thousands of years old. And she's able to find information that we recognize more than she recognizes. There's onyx stones. There's runes, which are the, like she describes as runes. We're very aware those are word marks. And like kind of while she's pulling through all of this stuff, we also learn about the Bass Cats, which are cats that they just like exist in the library and protect the books and the scrolls. They were never asked to be there. No one brought them there. They just exist and they answer to no one. And they're just like protectors of the library, which is so great. There's a couple of libraries by us too that like have cats in the library, and I was just like, yes, this is great. More. There's
a note that I thought was fantastic, and it was like part of Irene's like inner dialogue of like describing these cats, and it pretty much she goes, the Bass Cats were never summoned. They came when they felt like it. And it just was like, okay, a cat.
So cats.
Sounds great. The cats answered to no one. So like,
so good.
Similar to the Torre, like the Torre healers, like they don't answer to the Kagen, like they're their own thing. The cats are also like their own beings. And they originally, like, they showed up. They were there to like protect the books, eat rodents, just like keep the library safe from other things destroying the books, not necessarily like badness, but
yeah,
I just thought it was great.
So she finds a lot of information while she is looking through all of these
the scrolls
that she's found. So she finds an image of soldiers kneeling in front of a gate, 3 Vogue kings in like the photo basically, and that like she gets more information about the fact that these kings are wielders of this gate, which is like great. Anything that we don't already know in the scrolls, please. So she's like looking through these, and this is basically just for her confirming everything that Chaol is saying. So she's now able to just like, she trusts him more because she's now able to confirm with stuff that they have in their archives that like this is real.
So previously Chaol described what the Vogue looked like, and so in this image she describes that she squinted at the figures in the foreground. Their bodies were human, but the hands that were clutching their swords were clawed and twisted. And she whispers, Vogue. So this is where we kind of were like, okay, now you know he wasn't lying. Please help our semi-friend that we want to be healed, but kind of also want to punch him in the throat. But we don't want him to be paralyzed, but we still want to punch him in the throat.
A little bit. We also find the names of the kings as well. So there's Orcus, Mantix, and Erewhon, 3 Vogue kings, wielders of the key. More lore.
There's more than just Erewhon, which is not great.
Yeah, so like we had information about the Vogue princes, and we were like, okay, great, there's a bunch of Vogue princes, and then there's a king, and then now Irene's like, psych, there's actually 3 of them, and we're like, fuck, sick.
Cool. Cool.
But
Tight, tight.
just one of them's here, right? Just one. We're good. There's just the one dude. Probably.
This part scares me.
Yeah.
Because other than now we know there are 3 kings instead of just Erewhon. There are 2 others. Don't know where they are. Who knows? Fingers crossed. This might be a spoiler for people. Hopefully they're in a different fucking universe.
Yeah, I also hope they're in a different universe.
We got 1 for each one. It's fine. Just keep them 1 in each. We're good.
Yeah, just keep them. Yeah, 1 in each. No, terrible.
Well, then we have all of our power groups dealing with 1 king at a time.
I would just like there to not just be the one.
We're good with just one.
Don't need to put more shit on the other groups of people, please.
Mm-hmm. So she thinks this, like, everything Chaol had said was true. There was darkness swirled around the man in the photo, and his eyes went from like a silver to a black. And this makes us think, and Irene think, that the Voll can linger once the stone is removed. We have no idea what that means. That sounds terrible. It reminds me of kind of throwback to Gavin and Elena fighting Erewhon to begin with, and how they couldn't actually defeat him. So, like, they could remove the stone, and he's still gonna persist somehow, in some way, which is great. Fantastic.
It's not stressful at all.
Really happy about that. While she's figuring out this information, and while she's looking at these photos, she hears a click to her right. And then it gets closer.
Yeah. She starts hearing noises and, like, is looking into the dark and can't see anything, and is, like, trying to figure out if it's in her head or if it's just the cats. And she kind of just, like, writes it off and, like, makes her way out. She feels like someone walking next to her and is like, nope, not looking over there. She's doing, like, exactly what I would do in this situation of,
don't
like,
make eye contact.
If this were a horror movie, I'd look over there and go and figure it out. And in this sane woman, she's like, nope, if I don't look at it, it's not there. I'm like, yes, good go.
The biggest thing that I loved about this little spot was it plays back to Assassin's Blade she has a 6th sense when it comes to people, and she feels a shift in the room. And that is a big thing that prior to, like, the giant fight that occurred in the healer portion of Assassin's Blade was Irene noticed a shift in the air and in the room, and so did Aelin. And those, like, both characters had pointed that out. And then in this scenario, Irene starts moving because she felt a shift in the room, and she was like, I'm getting the fuck out of here right now. There is something watching me, and I'm going to leave.
Goodbye.
Yeah. So she puts her books in her bags. She's like, I'm gonna study these later.
And she starts getting out. And then she runs into somebody and starts, like, talking, like, hey, you know, we have that place that we have to be, that person that we have to go see, to try to be like,
I'm not alone.
Us, because someone will find out very soon. And she basically just, like, convinces her to, like, gather up your shit and we're getting out of here.
She also plays back a line from Aelin from Assassin's Blade that is, be more trouble than it's worth.
Yeah.
For your attacker. So with the idea of, like, I'm not just one person, I'm talking to, like, a group of girls as well. Like, we are not just one, you're gonna have to deal with more of us. Be more trouble than it's worth.
It's all of the stuff that, like, Aelin taught her, like, comes back in the scene of, like, so yell fire, don't yell help. Like, all of that stuff comes up in here, and we're just like, we know who taught her everything. Go ahead.
As she's moving through, she runs in to a healer on the ground. She immediately goes to check to see if this healer is okay. Her magic feels nothing, so you learn that this healer is dead. We also learn that it is the same healer that she kind of held hands with in the womb in this scenario.
Yeah.
So now she knows a healer is dead. Like,
She gets
and
everyone
she
out
is
of
like
the library.
every person
they
she
have a
sees
secret
as she's
code.
going. Every person she sees as she's going, she's like, "You're coming with me. Come this way. Come this way. Come this way." And it's just like herding people to the exit as she sees them because she knows this person is following her.
As soon as she gets to the main librarian, she tells her, like, a healer's been killed. Like, you need to get everyone out. And they have, like, a bell system that's, like, not known to anyone outside of the library. So, like, basically, like, one bell is listen, second is, like, listen now, and then third is, like, get out, run.
Mm-hmm.
And they all, everyone else basically makes it out. But they're, like... They all just got attacked. Like, someone got into their library.
What I think is great in this moment is a lot of Irene's inner dialogue from Assassin's Blade into this book so far is that she's kind of alone. Like, she has all these people around her and she's supported, but she doesn't share necessarily all of her thoughts with everyone. The fact that she wants to go back to Fenharrow to protect her, like, people and heal her people. And in this moment, all of the healers, like the 4 that she grabbed on her way out, they're all like holding hands and they refuse to leave her side. And she gets this like shift of, I don't have family, to like, this is sort of my family now. Yeah.
And she's able to protect them, which is so great.
It's such a, I don't know, that whole like scene of her realizing that these people care for her more than she maybe like really let herself feel is such a nice little thing.
It's good. She is very like detached in general.
Yeah.
Because even when she talks about, like, how she's friends with the Coggins children, it's, like, because she has to, and because she doesn't want to be rude. But, like, Hafiza's, like, the only one, or not Hafiza, Hasar is, like, the only one that's ever been, like...
her friend.
I don't know, friendly to her, and even her she keeps at arm's length. Because she's like, I'm not staying, so I'm not investing in any of this.
Yeah.
All right, sure. Technically, that's true.
So that's where we leave kind of Chaol and Nesrin and Irene. Some shit hit the fan in the library. Not great. Now we get to go check in with our Empire of Storm friends.
The Dream Team.
Dream Team.
Dream Team.
The first thing we get in this section of Empire of Storms is that Maeve is readying an army. We get this information from a random captain of a ship who said that they noticed armies of, like, a Fae army that was, like, hunkered down somewhere. But we don't know for why.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions. How many? How big? What direction? Who's she helping?
Is she helping Morath? Is she on Parrington's side because she wants all the stones for herself? Is she actually going to produce
ships,
aid?
And they're all warships.
Mm-hmm.
Which doesn't necessarily lead in the, we're gonna go aid you.
Yeah. Unless there are warships against Parrington. Which I don't think is the case.
The other thing that was weird too is, like, they asked, like, did you get a sense that Maeve was aligned with Morath or that she is coming to assist Terrasen? And he says neither. He was only sailing past, the person who found this information was only sailing past the Armada. But, like, the Armada was just kind of, like, out. Like, they didn't get any information about, like, where they were going or, like, did it look like they were going to war or just sailing around. Totally unhelpful.
Yeah. Pretty much the person that's giving them this information is the captain that they bribed to bring them to Skull's Bay. And so they're trying to get as much information from the people that like travel, which are captains. People that man ships are the ones that are out and about and seeing more things than they're seeing at Ilium or wherever they are.
I love Lysandra's like wrap up of all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Lysandra says, Morath is unleashing horrors. Maeve stirs across the sea. 2 goddesses walk hand in hand with Aelin. More than that, Mala and Diana have watched her over the entirety of her life. But perhaps it wasn't watching. Perhaps it was shaping. So they might one day unleash her too. And I wonder if the gods have weighed the costs of that storm, deemed the casualties worth it. It's such a good line of like
calm before the
they
storm.
They have not just been like blessed or like been like, yep, you have my blessing, go out and do what you will, but that they are physically shaping and pushing all of these entities in the direction that they want it, and that the idea of their ultimate goal being that they're going to unleash Aelin upon the world. And whether the casualties of that are worth it is insane. Ugh.
Lysandra at the
next
end
line,
of that
the
dialogue,
next line is literally a chill snaked down his spine. And I'm like, yep. Agreed.
The end of that conversation is Lysandra pretty much saying, we have yet to see the full extent of Erewhon's darkness, and I think we have yet to see the full extent of Aelin's fire.
Fuck yeah.
We love it.
Both? Probably both. We have more terror, but also more kick-ass awesome to be unleashed, which is good. It's just which one's gonna be bigger.
Yeah. There's also like when
I do love
when Aedion and Lysandra are chatting, that like their whole dialogue is just like flirting back and forth, but then also telling each other to fuck off, which I think is fantastic.
That's the way that they flirt.
Yeah, it's so good.
That is them flirting.
Aedion also mentions that he envies Aelin and Rowan's love story, like their love between each other, which I was just like,
It's adorable.
Because we get, like, way back, Lysandra mentioned that, like, she wanted a love like that, and now Aedion's also mentioning that he also wants a love like that, and you're like, yay.
Good, you guys should find that together. Maybe you find it together, that'd be great, please.
Mm-hmm.
They're so cute.
So, Aelin and Aedion and Lysandra go to the temple that...
This is where the little folk had said, like, this is your next step. Like, they had pointed her in the direction of going to this temple. And they finally get to the temple because the main reason they decide to go is because it's taken over by soldiers from Otterlin. Because they took advantage of the king, like, basically getting deposed and no one being there to defend Terrasen land. He's like, I'm gonna take over this area.
Tiny little,
and
like...
Aelin is like,
spot.
Cool. So she goes to the temple, and she walks into the temple, and there's just a bunch of dudes, like, camping out in her temple, and she just says, get the fuck out. Okay, you guys have to go.
I love this part, too, because she goes... She, like, fire in hand is like, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. That's up to you. And she, like, pretty much states who she is, what her power is. This is what I've done so far. So you can leave. Like, I'm going to give you the chance to just go. Or you can fight me. Like, that's... I don't want to kill anyone that's unnecessary. Like, pretty much is like...
Aedion...
Don't want to kill you if I don't have to.
My lady gives you a choice. Leave now or never leave at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of the soldiers, like a bunch of them, like drop their weapons and run away. And one of the soldiers says, you bleeding cowards. And then he like identifies the two of them, calling them the Wolf of the North and the fire-breathing bitch herself. Yeah!
Fire-breathing bitch queen. Fire-breathing bitch queen.
So, like, a bunch of them do actually leave. Such a good story.
It's the best. Good. My favorite.
I don't have that one. I do have the little otter you have, though, and I have to put it on my Kindle. Look at the otter!
Spoiler from
oh my God.
Crescent City. There's an otter, and they're cute as fuck.
And they deliver the mail.
They're so cute. They're the best.
They wear little yellow vests. God damn it, Crescent City's got some fucking magical moments in it. It's so good.
One person that doesn't surrender, so a bunch of people leave. So they're at like half capacity
they're like,
now.
I'm done.
Maybe a third. 2/3 of the army is like, nah, I don't want to be a part of this. I'm good. They leave. The commander, of course, talks shit. And she's like, okay. And she burns him alive from the inside out. And Aedion is like, was that necessary? And she's just like, tee-hee.
She's like, yeah.
Tee-hee, sorry. Then a few others leave. Like, she kills one person, and then the others are like, oh, okay, maybe maybe she's right. I'm gonna leave now. She, like, gives them another chance to, like...
It literally says, they took the temple in 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Was it 20? Because I wrote down 10.
It says, they took back the temple in 20 minutes.
Fantastic. So good.
It's fantastic. Another 10 minutes were spent scorching the place, looking for ambushers.
Perfect. They took control of the temple in 10, and then the other 10 was making sure no one was hiding.
Yeah, it was 10 before they had control of it, and then the other 10 was spent trying to find, like, anyone that was hiding.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
So good. I just write, Aelin goes to the heart of the temple to the giant shiny rock.
I mean, they just keep saying the rock, but also rock is capitalized, which is very weird.
Yeah.
Alone at the rock, the ancient rock, and rock is capitalized every time. The massive black rock, which was stressful to read for a second.
And I was like, excuse us?
Sorry, black rock? Hold on. Wait.
It's like, we have bad experience with rock that is black because of word stones and towers and onyx, everything.
So she makes it to the rock. She makes it to the temple. She, like, steps. Also, it says she steps onto it.
Don't know how.
So, like, is
I'm
it
picturing
like a circle rock, like a rock platform situation?
The rock from New World where I jump on top of it and the other one drops down.
Like, I didn't understand when they were talking about rock, I was like, so it's like a platform, not a rock.
For some reason, I pictured a sphere. A spherical rock that she somehow got on top of. Don't know why I pictured it to be a sphere. At no point is it described spherically, from my knowledge.
Well, it literally, so it says, at its far end, open to the wrath of the sea beyond, arose the massive black rock. It was smooth as glass, no doubt, from the reverent hands that had touched it over a millennia, and perhaps as big as a farmer's market wagon. It jutted upward, hanging over the sea, and starlight bounced off its pocketed surface as Aelin extinguished every flame but the sole white candle fluttering at the center of the rock. The temple carvings revealed no word marks or further messages from the litter folk, just swirls and stags. She'd have to do this the old-fashioned way then. Aelin mounted the small stairs that allowed pilgrims to gaze upon the sacred rock and then stepped onto it. It's a rock of undescribed.
But okay, so it juts out. It's like a platform that comes from the temple. So we're going to go with that. It's a platform that sticks out from the temple. It's got a tiny little candle in the middle for some reason.
Yep. Candle, middle of the candle.
She has now stepped onto it. And then we are summoning someone. She pulls her word key out of her jacket. And I just think it's hilarious that the first thing that is said to her from this person that is summoned, you look younger than I thought. And she goes,
and then her response
is, just as good looking, right?
Just as good looking. God damn it, woman.
This whole interaction, too, is like very comical.
At least my daughter was right about your humility. Funny, she never implied you had a sense of humor. Their back and forth is so good.
1,000%. So it's Brannon. Brannon is now talking to her, which
Brannon
we love.
Of the wildfire.
It's so good.
I mean, she talks to everybody.
Yeah.
She's got Deanna, and she's got Mila, Firebringer, and then she talks to Elena. She talks to Brannon, who apparently, from that bit, Brannon and Elena talk to each other.
Mm-hmm. Gavin talked to Aedion?
Oh, and Gavin talks to Aedion.
Yeah.
Has that happened yet?
Or no, Dorian. Who did he talk to?
No, you're right. Gavin talks to Dorian.
Did that
because
happen
it's
yet?
one king to one king.
I don't know. Gavin talks to him at some point. Gavin talks to someone at some point.
Dorian.
Yeah.
Because they're having a conversation about being king. And it's Gavin and Dorian who's now king.
So this whole interaction is going to be very similar to her talking to Elena. So it's going to be her asking questions and getting cryptic messages back.
No
which
answers.
Is our favorite.
It's great. It's so good. Fucking annoying.
She asks Brannon about Maeve, which I think is very important. She... I still think one is... but you're going to manage to cram in as many cryptic warnings as you can, right?
She's just saying what we're all thinking when we're reading these.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, great. We get a face-to-face conversation with someone who could provide us with lore. And chooses not to.
Yep.
Call
Can't
back
tell
to
us
Mort,
everything.
you sack of shit. God damn you.
So, pretty much, Aelin asks, can Maeve be killed? And Brannon responds with, I don't know. But
maybe
she does fear my flame and yours, which really reiterates that she has the exact same flame as Brannon. So they both have this flame, and we are in hopes that she has the eternal flame or whatever the hell it's called, so she can just be automatic queen. That's our hope, so that she doesn't have to like fight for her crown.
Yeah.
But who knows? He pretty much says, I don't know. All Fae may be killed, yet she has outlived even our extended lifespans and her power. No one really understands her power. So that's a little concerning. Especially now that I know that there are more than one king.
He does confirm that she's not Vogue. He says, as cold as one, but no. And then she asks him, does the power ever get easier to handle? This part I loved so much is like, she's so strong and so like outwardly I can do everything herself that like when we get her bits of vulnerability, like they hit me so hard and they feel so impactful. And his response is like, yes and no. Oh, this one hurts. How it impacts your relationships with those around you becomes harder than the managing of the power. Yet it's tied to it as well.
So then we get a little lore, like nondescript lore dump from Brannon. And the information that we need to actually, maybe save the world. He says, the lock. Heir of Terrasen, I summoned you here for it. In the stone marshes, there lies a sunken city. The lock is hidden there. It is needed to bind the keys back into the broken word gate. It is the only way to get them back into that gate and seal it permanently. My daughter begs you. What lock? Find the lock. Where is the stone marshes? It's not exactly a small... Brannon was gone.
What lock? Find it. Where? Not exactly small. Bye! I hate it here.
Like, just general direction, location. Maybe we go southern continent, maybe northern. You can give us a continent. We can head in the general direction. The marshes, cool. Stone marshes. Do we have anything
When
on our
she,
map
like-
that says stone marshes?
I don't know. That's a good question, actually.
Volcano flows, black sands, knoll, oasis of bark, silent assassins, the cleaver, dunes.
Stone marshes.
Stone
South of Eelway, by the Narrow Sea.
Okay.
It's fucking all the way at the bottom of the map. Where are they now?
Well, they're. I don't think there's a.
They have to be up by Terrasen, because this is a thing that's...
Yeah. Yeah,
this
Ilium.
place- God fucking
It's on
damn
the
it.
right side of the.
Hey,
map.
go to the opposite end of the world. Thank you.
Just
Also,
north of Otterlin.
big
Ilium.
location. They're
It's
in
like the
Ilium.
one-
Yeah, okay,
yeah.
that makes sense. Because that line is the borderline. God
Yeah.
fucking damn
They're
it.
at like the very south part of Terrasen. And then they're gonna work their ways to Skull's Bay, which is here. Hold on. Right there.
Yeah.
And then this is where our marshes are. At least they're heading in the general direction of where they
I
need
feel
to
like I want to Google just because someone's already done it, I swear to God. I just want to Google, like, this map, and I want someone to show
be. Travel pattern.
her travel path throughout the whole series.
We
'Cause
went
it has-
here. And
It's
we're
gotta
here.
be there, right?
It's gotta be. Somewhere.
I'm gonna try to find it. If I find it, we'll have our editor put it in, or we'll put it in the description or something. Cause fuck, that's so funny. Also, she like finishes the conversation and then like turns to like Aedion and Lysandra, who apparently, I thought it was like a thing where she would get transported somewhere and have the conversation while the conversation was happening, and then the conversation's end. She's like, "You guys could hear everything that we were saying, right?" Aedion goes, "Yeah, Brandon winked at me before he disappeared." It's like, God damn it.
I assume you heard everything?
So funny. Which I thought was great because, you know, they had this whole conversation and Aedion and Lysandra just standing back there like, God fucking damn it. Like, oh my God, she didn't tell us something again. That's so crazy.
Yeah, she gets called out for not communicating with Aedion again.
As she should.
Yes. Lysandra, I don't think holds it as, like,
Nah.
against her as much. Aedion does because it feels like he's supposed to be, like, her right-hand man in this scenario.
Mhm.
Lysandra and Aelin are still, like, they are good friends and they're learning to, like, love each other and, like,
Yeah.
trust each other. So I think because of all of their, like, backstory, Lysandra's like, she'll tell me when she wants. And I'll be here. And Aedion's like, you need to bring me in now. I've been fighting for so long. You need to please give me...
Also, how do I protect you if you never listen to me ever?
Yes, pretty much. But, yeah.
Rowan and him can just have a little, like, therapy session. They'll be fine.
So, Aedion slid an arm around Aelin's shoulders. And I think, based off Aedion's character, he could have handled this one of two ways. And I think the way he handled it was the best way.
Okay.
He just says, new court, new traditions, you said, even for you, starting with fewer schemes and secrets that take years off my life every time you do a grand reveal. Though I certainly enjoyed that new trick with the ash. Very artistic.
I don't have that highlighted. Why don't I have that highlighted?
I don't know. It's on page 147.
I have for some reason I have, of course there's a goddamned lock highlighted, but I don't have that highlighted.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's just, I meant to highlight it as like, this whole section's great.
I have my, this is where the scene starts.
Oh,
this
there
is
you go.
funny. And this is another, like, scene that I
This is
think
where
is
we're wrapping
also
up.
very good.
Oh,
Yeah.
Great.
The blue highlight in between says, Brandon even winked at me before he vanished. Like, that's my funny. It's just like a
That's a
random
good
thing
one.
in the middle that I thought was hilarious.
I like that way of annotating. I gotta try to do that with my next ones. Although the annotating on the color Kindle has been freaking fantastic.
So this
It's so
brings me
good.
to the section because I have the tab on the right side. And
Yeah,
then it brings me to
that's
both
nice.
pages, and then this is where it starts. And that's kind of where it ends.
I like that a lot.
I did the same here, too. Throw a blue one in there
Wow.
randomly. I don't know. I
So,
liked
of
that little
course-
heart to heart where he was like,
it's great.
I understand. And we're doing this together now. New traditions, remember? You said?
And because we can't have cute, nice, happy moments without something going wrong, literally right when they're having this conversation, Volg show up. Great.
Mm.
It's
Yep.
just one, but it's like the worst one it could possibly be. I don't
See,
know.
this is the point.
They're not sure if they're not sure if they got sold out or if they just he already
Bad
happened to
luck.
be there.
Yeah.
But the Volg that shows up is the overseer. That was her overseer in Dovir. So, trauma.
This is the
Great.
point where I think Erewhon had more information and knew more. Aelin knew that Aedion had been right. Her actions tonight had sent a message, an outright declaration of her location. Erewhon had been waiting for this meeting far longer than a few hours, and the Vol King knew both sides of her history. And it just, like, that little tidbit, I'm like, how much?
I just don't think that he knew. I think he has connected that she and that Aelin and Selena are the same people. But I do not believe that he knew that Selena
At the time when she was
Aelin
Selena.
at the time. Yes.
That's fair.
I don't think he knew that Aelin was Selena until after she gets back from Wendland. Or when she's in Wendland, I think is when he figures it out. Because I feel like there's one line that that she says, maybe even to Parrington. Or no, it's when she comes back. When she comes back, I feel like there was a line that happened in the throne room that the king says of like, you two never even noticed that your mortal enemy, you guys were in the same room and neither of you noticed. Like, that was the greatest enemies of this age are just in the same room and you didn't know.
Was it the king said it?
I think
when
the king
he was
said
like
it.
finally coming to.
I think
or,
so.
like, in that
I think
in
that's why,
between.
because I definitely remember it being said at one time. I think it was the king. I'd have to go back and look, but that I think that's the tidbit where I'm like, I don't think he knew that
That's fair.
that she was Aelin while she was pretending to be Selena.
I kind of forgot about a lot
But
of the things that were said in that scenario.
he knows, but he knows now,
Mhm.
and like it puts him in a really good position because he knows a lot about Selena. And now that he knows that Selena's just Aelin, he just knows like way more. He knows even more than like realistically like Dorian, Chaol.
Aedion, anyone.
The only person I think that doesn't know more is Rowan at this point, and that's just because I think at this time she's told him everything.
Yeah.
Which
He
is
doesn't know
terrifying.
like every minute detail, but he knows like the general.
Yeah.
Like he definitely knows more than like Aedion, Chaol, Dorian.
Yeah.
I think Dorian knows a lot because once Dorian's magic started to
They
show,
know a lot of different pieces.
Dorian and Aelin had like heart to heart about like certain things that occurred. But
basically the main bad guy knows too much about our main hero, and that's terrifying.
yeah. So
And he knows like the perfect ways to fucking poke at her, which is to send the chief overseer, who is the one who like whipped her, to be the Vogue that attacks her.
Yeah.
Which is horrible.
In
The
this
overseer
scene,
calls her slave through the
Yeah.
whole scene, which is fucking gross.
she also has her inner dialogue of "I will not be afraid. I will not be afraid," which I highlight every time I see it because I'm just like, Sam, we love you, Sam.
She uses her like she still puts on like her air of bravado,
Mm-hmm.
even though like all of the inner dialogue that we're getting is that like she's
Terrified.
not okay at this interaction.
Yeah. There is a note at the beginning of this interaction that this overseer is at the forefront of the body that's there at the beginning of the conversation, because it says the overseer's watery blue eyes slid to hers, narrowing with amusement. Too bad you didn't have that little gift when I put you in those pits, or when I painted the earth with your blood, referring to him whipping her. That is the overseer talking. That is not the Vogue inside of him talking. Because we get another scene where it's like his eyes shift to black and you're like, oh, fuck.
Yeah. So she attacks him, like, basically right after he says that. She kind of, like, has Winty. She's like, it's late. Let's just get this over with. I got shit to do. And, like, he goes to speak again and she attacks. Her attack hits, like, a wall. There's nothing for her to, like, grab onto. There's nothing for her flame to burn. And this is when, like, the demon side of the overseer, like, starts to take over, become more apparent. She reeled back, magic vanishing, knees buckling as if struck. Her head gave a throb and nausea roiled in her gut. She knew that feeling, that taste. Iron. As if the man's core was made of it, that oily, hideous aftertaste of wordstone. The demon inside the overseer let out a choked laugh. What are collars and rings compared to a solid heart? A heart of iron and wordstone to replace the coward's beating heart within it.
Oh, no! There's this moment where, I don't know if it's Aelin or Aedion has this, like, thought of... Aelin has this thought of saving the overseer that's, like, in the body. Like, she doesn't outright kill the overseer. She's trying to kill the demon inside. And the demon lashes out back and says, like, his mind was worse than, like, when I got here than it is right now. Saying that he's also a piece of shit. Why are you trying to save him? And you're like,
yeah.
Oh. It's like, because even
like, she wants to burn the demon out of him. And the demon's like, bro, like, this is not the guy you want to save. Like, if you're going to take us both out, you might as well take us out. Like, just do both.
Yeah. What's wild is,
he's not wrong.
Until looking back, didn't even really notice the fact that it was, like, the overseer's eyes. Like, it was still the overseer talking and not the demon. And you're like, oh, you're right. He is evil. Like, the overseer was evil as well. So, like, there is no heartache. In the end, you learn that the king actually wasn't a piece of shit. He was, like, trying to fight against.
Yeah, the king of Otterland.
So, like, you kind of think that all of them maybe aren't a piece of shit and it's just the Vogue inside. But then you get this little, like, no, the overseer was also a piece of shit. Like, we don't need to save him or feel bad that he's going to die. Which I liked the information, so I don't feel bad that he's going to die.
True.
I didn't want him to be good on the inside. I wanted him to die because he needed to die. Hate. Yes.
Yeah, great.
Other
Super
than
healthy.
Erewhon and the Vogue. Like, I needed someone. Yeah.
But, like, you know, you wanted the win to feel like a win, and the win, you felt cheated.
Yeah, with the king, I felt kind of cheated. Like, the Vogue died, but then also the king, who was kind of a good person,
but also, you're like, fuck.
And now Dorian's fucked in the head because, like, he learned that his dad's not actually a piece of shit, even though he was for his whole life. And so he's like, God, what's happening? So, like, it's like a win and a loss simultaneously. This is just a win and a win. At the end of the fight. You're like, sick. 2 bad people are hopefully gone.
Yeah. So she, like, tries to attack him, like, over and over and over again. She's making herself sick because she can't. It's iron, okay? And wordstone. Like, it's not gonna work.
And as we learned from the very, very beginning, first book, the reason all the doors and, like, the sarcophagi and things like that were made out of iron because magic is, like, null and void. It's the only thing that
resists iron. Or resists magic is iron. So then something starts pulsing against the overseer's ribs, slamming into his skin, stretching bone and flesh, and something starts, like, coming out from the inside of the overseer and
just
out
like,
of the overseer like fucking alien, okay? Like
that's
that's
the
what I
only thing
pictured in my brain.
too.
Like I couldn't not picture just alien
Coming
and,
out
like,
of his gut.
There was nothing in bone snapping, punching outward, ripping through muscle and skin as if his chest cavity were a petals of blooming flower, which is a very strange way to describe that. Sure. Just write like alien instead. Petals of blooming flower was not the descriptor I was picturing in my brain, but sure. There was nothing inside, no blood, no organs, only a mighty ageless darkness. 2 flickering golden embers in its colors. Not embers, eyes. Simmering with ancient malice. They narrowed in acknowledgement and pleasure. It took every ounce of her fire to steel her spine, to tilt her head at a jaunty angle and drawl. At least you know how to make a good entrance, Erewhon. So basically his body just like
opens,
flays out, and then it's just a dark portal with eyes.
With Erewhon's face, essentially.
Cool. Sick.
Fantastic.
And now we get to have a cool conversation with Erewhon, which we all are so excited about. Great.
Yeah. So that Overseer is still, like, his mouth is still where sound is coming from. So you have eyes, stomach, mouth, still sounds. So you get the Overseer spoke, but the voice was not his. The voice was also not Parrington's. So now we are essentially getting the true Erewhon voice.
This is another conversation of vague and unhelpful.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, I would think Erewhon may be the only person that should be vague and unhelpful at this point. Don't know why everyone else is being unhelpful, but...
Erewhon's first sentence is like, I would think gratitude is in order, heir of Brannon. And she's like, so why exactly am I thanking you? For what, please? For the small warning present, for ridding the world of one more bit of vermin, and for making you realize how fruitless standing against me will be. That part of the sentence was whispered into her skull. And Aedion's and Lysandra's, I'm fairly certain. So that's fun. Erewhon can just talk into her brain, we've learned.
Sick.
Really great. Sick. Also, it's in italics, which means every time she thought something, and Rowan knew what it was. I think they were talking.
In their brain, in their minds.
Yeah, anytime italics,
Right.
They're talking to each other in their brain. Even though they're like, his eyes said...
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's the magic thing for me.
Yeah, it's
I think
part
it's
of their,
the magic of like it's like your inner dialogue. I just don't think that they have it quite as distinguished in this as they do in ACOTAR, of like they specifically are just like they're talking in their heads.
No, I don't think it's as distinguished. I think
that's what I'm saying.
they
Is it's not as distinguished
think
in this.
They're reading it on each other's face,
right?
But it's
I
actually
think
being
that they
spoken
aren't.
into their head.
It's just their magic being like, this is the internal dialogue that you're thinking. Yeah, but I think in ACOTAR, like they are actually talking in their heads,
actively having a conversation.
Good old Erewhon threatens, everyone we care about. It's great. Dorian and Rowan. What a prize he shall be. Get fucked, Erewhon.
Yeah.
Don't you touch him.
Aelin, of course, does her, she brings Selena out. And she goes, I suggest you rest and gather your strength, Erewhon. You're going to need it. Even though she's, like, being shredded to bits, as we know, internal dialogue. Her magic is not doing shit right now against it's not actually Erewhon, it's just the body of the Overseer that Erewhon's talking through somehow, which we don't know how that's happening. He does slam, like, magic into her.
Yeah.
And, like, hits her in the chest.
He, like, attacks her, and she does get, like, hit.
But, like, hits off to the side of where the word key was just hanging, just chilling in a little amulet on her chest. Like, just barely misses it. and hits her instead, which of course knocks the fucking shit out of her.
Yep.
And she hits the ground.
He tells her that, like, his hunters are tracking Rowan and Dorian, so, like, now their main thing is, like, okay, we have to find them, because we're pretty sure that Erewhon is after the two of them.
Once Erewhon decides he doesn't want to have this conversation anymore, strikes her with his power, and then the Aelin kind of pushes her magic, finally like goes through the body of the overseer and like completely burns him up, and then it's just like the stone heart hits the ground. It's just like a thud and ash. And you're like, well, fuck. That's not great. He's not dead. At least. And we don't even know if whatever was in that heart is dead. It could just be chilling now on the ground next to us.
The other thing that she realizes, and this was like one of the things when I was reading this that made me like really start to get nervous about just having to fight him in general and like what could happen in this book. If they were ever captured, he'd make her watch as they were carved apart and filled with his power. Make her look into their faces when he'd finished and find no trace of their souls with him, and then he'd get to work on her. It's so... One of the things I do love and hate about a lot of the villains that Sarah J. Maas writes is, like, they scare the shit out of me. This is one of the series where it's such a build-up of, like, from the start of the book, it's the same villain, basically, the whole time. You realize, as it goes on, that it's been the same villain the whole time, and that he's just more and more powerful than you ever thought he could be. But it's still, like, so consistently the same issue. Because, like, even in ACOTAR, and especially in Crescent City, like, you have, like, a different main...
There's, like, different goals of each book, sort of.
Right. But it's not necessarily, like...
There's one person manipulating all of it.
It doesn't feel like... Yeah, it feels... That's what it is. To me, in my brain, it feels like season to season. Like, if you watch a TV show, like, you're going to have, like, a main arc of the season, but you might not necessarily have, like, large connections between seasons. This series just feels like you've got, like, that seasonal kind of end where you have a thing to accomplish, but then, like, the whole freaking series is so connected and has such an insane, terrifying arc that it goes through, and, like, Erewhon is fucking scary. And I think that's one of the things that, like, really just makes that last 3 or 4 books, or like 3 or 4 books, like, so captivating, is that I can't think of another fantasy romance type series like this where the main villain scares me as much as Erewhon does.
And, like, I think the biggest thing is that
and you've got Maeve, who's also terrifying, but, like...
Yeah, we don't know shit about her right now. We just know she...
she could be just as bad, or worse.
Yeah, we don't know. She hasn't died either, so...
She's not dead. She's been around for a while.
Maybe she wants to go make babies with Erewhon.
Ugh.
Which would be terrifying. Yeah. He has... Yeah, in this story, like, across the board, there's one figurehead that's manipulating every scenario in every book, and we're just now realizing it's this guy who was supposedly dead but wasn't, because Gavin and Elena just put him into a mountain.
Rowan and Dorian are being tracked by Erewhon. They're hauling ass to Skull's Bay now, because now everyone's stressed out about, like, okay, Erewhon knew things that we didn't think he should know, and he said that he sent his hunters out to look for them. So we're gonna go to Skull's Bay.
Yeah.
And Aelin, that's where we end with them.
Lysandra's like,
episode.
Let's fucking go.
We gotta
go. We're back with Chaol and Irene. This is session 2 for Chaol. Session 1 I guess maybe technically session 3, because
Session 3.
they met where they talked and she wrote all the names down. That's technically not. I don't really
We've
count
got an
that as a session.
evaluation, and we've got our first physical therapy session, and now we're in
session 2.
Session 2.
Yeah, third time.
Meeting 3, session
Irene
2.
and Chaol
Whatever.
are together. Irene's late, so Chaol starts working
Not
out. He waited at first, told Nezrin to like go do her thing. She's meeting with Sartak in the Rook, as we discussed. She's gonna get not in the Rook. She's getting introduced to a Rook in the Eyrie.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where Nezrin is. Chaol's kind of like twiddling his thumbs. Irene hasn't shown up. An hour has passed. And so Chaol begins to start going through his exercises because he's like, I think this is the first like positive thing to come out of his paralyzation, is that he's like, I have to work out. It is like the one thing that is like kind of holding him together, I think. And so he just starts working out his upper body. He's like doing push-ups and moving himself from his chair to his couch or bed or whatever. But he's pretty much working out as much as he can. He takes, I think, part of his exercises, like she said in the previous, is like, I know you can't move your legs independent of each other, but one of the things is like picking up your leg and moving it like side to side, pulling it up so your knee comes up, like just so that your legs still have like blood flowing through them and like are doing some kind of motion. So he's actually doing the exercises that she was showing him how to do, which like
she's like surprised.
1 point for Chaol. I'm also surprised. Like this whole thing inside his head is like, Irene is late. He's waiting and waiting. Like he took a bath before Irene came or was supposed to come. I think she was supposed to be at like 10 a.m. or something. Mm-hmm. And waiting. An hour in, Chaol began going through what exercise he could manage on his own, unable to stand the silence. So like instead of sitting and wallowing, he like actually starts working out, which I think is like a 1 point for Chaol. I'm giving him a point.
We're getting a point.
Yes. He gets a point for this one, I think.
I'm down. Points.
By the time Irene shows up, he is like, his arms are trembling because he actually is doing exercises. There is that little dialogue in his head is like, if Irene didn't bother to arrive on time, when he certainly wouldn't wait for her. Which I'm like, okay, it's maybe him kind of being an ass to like get back at her for not showing up on time and like wasting his time.
Yeah, you show her by doing
where I'm like,
you're supposed to.
Sure, job, whatever. Chaol. If this is how we have to like get you to do something good, fine, you can be grumpy about it.
And then Irene comes in and says, if you wish to exercise, perhaps a better place for it would be the barracks, rather than sweating all over the Coggins priceless rugs. Amazing. So she like basically makes up some lie to like get rid of Kadya, who's the like servant.
Yeah. And
gets her out of the room. And Chaol's like, why did you like want to get rid of her? She like whips around and immediately is like, because someone killed a healer last night in the library and they tried to get to me too.
He does try to get information out first, and her first sign back to him was, you exercised. And he's like, yeah. Okay, what's going on? Why are you late? What's happening? Why do you look like someone died? She's like, well, kind of because someone did die.
Yeah. So she says, she basically like gets her to leave so that it's just the two of them. She doesn't want anyone like listening in on their conversation because she's basically like telling him, I went and looked and researched what you were telling me, found research that matched what you were telling me, and then someone was like lurking in the shadows following me while I was in the library. And he's like immediately like is concerned that
it's Vogue in some manner.
It's Vogue. And it like he's concerned that like, did they do this? Did they bring them here? Were they already here?
Are they here because Chaol's here?
Like, are they here because Chaol came here and they followed him, or were they here and it's just now like that they're attacking because they're looking into it?
Yeah, and he realizes that it was Volg, and she kind of does too, because she describes the manner in which the body was found, and she says that it was just a body that was drained. It was pretty much a husk. And that we know is like how the Volg.
Yeah.
It's how they do, as we learned.
She also says that she thinks that the Volg thought it was her. Because they look similar and they were in the same place like the day before.
Yeah. Which is
she looked like me.
terrifying.
Our builds are coloring. Whoever it was, I think they were looking for me. And she thinks it's because of what she was reading last night. She thinks it's because she's finding out more information than she should, and possibly because she's trying to heal him. And they don't want him healed.
Yeah.
They also start talking about the princess that died.
Yeah. And how Cashin believes that she was killed and not.
Right. So Chaol tells Irene that like Cashin thinks that Tumalun was killed, which is the youngest sister's name. And Irene is like giving him information of like her body wasn't drained. The healer herself declared it was a suicide. And Irene is like, you need to warn the Kagan that this is happening.
That sentence made me super sus. And I know. It's because I'm sus about everything.
Yeah.
But the sentence, Tumalin's body was not drained. Hafiza, the healer on high herself, declared it was suicide. I went, huh? She did what now?
I know. But we have to remember that Dorian wanted to die from having one of those in his head. So if my thought is like initial reaction, huh? Are you also in on it? That's terrifying. But I pretty quickly was like, all right, hold on. Maybe it's fine, because I think it is realistic that she could have actually killed herself, because the body's not drained. But I think she could have killed herself in like
because
the way
something
that
was trying to take over her body.
She was probably in some way like captured by a Volg, but she had enough power to be able to like fight enough to kill herself before,
which would also kill
it took control, which is exactly what Dorian hoped for in all of the fucking passages. He's like, as soon as I get control of my body, as soon as it's distracted enough or weak enough to not have control, I'm going to get myself killed.
Yeah. It was the same with
it's the same with every single person that they talk to that's not a sack of shit. The ones who are sacks of shit thrive.
Why can't I think of her name? She exploded in Morath.
Oh, Kaltane.
Kaltane. My brain was saying Caitlin, and I was like, that is not correct.
It's close.
It was close. I was like, there's a K, there's a T, and an A in there.
It's the fantasy form of Caitlin.
There you go. The fantasy Caitlin. Kaltane.
Kaltane. Not far off.
My brain was also thinking the same thing of like, maybe she was stronger like Kaltane and was able to like, knew that if she let it go on any further, that the Volg would be able to take over, or whatever it was would be able to take over her fully. So she decided to kill herself instead.
Yeah. So this is like my favorite part. Is so they start talking about like, you need to warn the Kagan, like people need to be on their guard. Has there been more guards stationed like around the Torre? And she's like, yeah, we're doing all the right stuff. Like no one's going down to the libraries by themselves. Like people are going to double up, but the girls, the young acolytes, they're frightened. And this is when we learn that she's been teaching a class. Irene teaches a class once a week. And after last night, they were all too tired, so I let them sleep instead. And tonight they have a vigil for the healer, which she's like, we have to go to that. But tomorrow she wants him to come and like teach at her class. And Chaol's like, what type of class? And she's like, it's a self-defense class, where she teaches basically everything that Aelin taught her in the healer the
And then
healer and
some.
the assassin in this class.
Yeah.
And I was just
You learn that she's teaching, obviously, what Aelin taught her, kind of in that alley. But it's also...
Someone taught me self-defense. What to do against attackers. Usually the male kind.
You also get the, like, part similar to her, just, like, sixth sense in the library.
Yeah.
She is also teaching the girls to trust their instinct. Like, to trust that shift in the air. Like, trust being able to feel when bad is coming. Or, like, if someone doesn't have a good vibe. Like... That is also part. I like that it's like she took Aelin's stuff and then also kind of like inserted her, like the stuff she learned along the way too, where I'm just like, yay, it's like the two of them together. We love this.
And she's like, you should come and then we can get all of your knowledge and like teach the girls.
It's like you were the captain of the guard, weren't you?
To which he responds, you realize I'm in this chair? She responds, and your mouth still works. Oh my god. He blinked again. They might not find me the most reassuring instructor. No, they'll likely be swooning and sighing over you so much they'll forget to be afraid. So good. He's being self-conscious about his chair and the fact that he's in a wheelchair and that he won't be able to demonstrate any of it. And she's like, you have a mouth, dude. Like, what are you talking about?
But your brain doesn't work anymore because your legs don't? Like, you can't teach people stuff? She did talk about the scar on his cheek, which I think was like... He didn't address it. Like, he didn't say how he got it. But she pretty much was like, the scar adds a touch of mystery.
Yeah.
Which I was like,
they just kind of, he doesn't really respond to it. And just kind of is like, you want me to be there tomorrow, I guess? Basically, like, the end of their conversation is like, he basically was like, I thought you resented me. And she's like, if you show up tomorrow, I'll reconsider. I
do also like, so she's like, we'll figure out how to get you there, but it should not be so difficult. And he goes, stuffing me into a carriage will be fine. She stiffened. Save that anger for our training, Lord Westfall, and you will not be taken in a carriage. So she brings up a horse. Ever heard of one? Which I thought was hilarious. And of course, he gets very defensive of like, I need my legs to ride. Because in theory, like you to ride a horse, you have to like pinch your legs together to stay on top of said horse. Irene has some stuff in her back pocket because she's a healer and she has worked with people who have had similar injuries, as we learned at the very beginning, which is why she was called upon for this type of injury. He, of course, is like, please don't get my hopes up. She's like, good healers don't do that, Lord Westfall. And this part, I think, is one of the times that he kind of like lets her in on a little bit of like the emotional baggage side of him.
Yeah.
Because she corrects him. It's Chaol. My name. It's Chaol, not Lord Westfall. Lord Westfall is my father. Well, you're a lord too. Just Chaol. Lord Chaol? He shot her a look as he positioned his legs. Here I was thinking, you still resented me. If you help my girls tomorrow, I'll reconsider. It's just this like little bit of she meets him halfway. She still calls him Lord Chaol, but kind of like meets him in the middle of like, I'm still gonna push this button because I know there's something there, but I'm gonna give you a little so that you're not like completely bottled up because you just gave me a little bit of yourself.
She definitely doesn't. She doesn't let him get away with anything, which I think is nice. But she doesn't, like, beat him up.
It's like a good therapist. You say something bad, and they're like, let's reframe that a little. Like, rephrase it just slightly.
Let's go back to that real quick.
Yeah. It's really what she is. Like, we talked about it. She has to heal him physically, but also part of it is, like, being his therapist, like helping them cope with the fact that they're injured or whatever.
After the conversation, he basically is like, are we going to do another like massage? And she's like, nope, we're going to work on the magic today.
Yeah.
So she's like, I did my research. I need to start like prodding around and poking and seeing what's going on. And they like get ready. She gets ready to like work on the scar. And all she does is place her hand on the scar. And Chaol opens his mouth, and instead of speaking, he just fucking screams.
Yeah.
It is so painful. It is like, he describes it as burning, razor-sharp pain sliced down his back in brutal claws. She said it hates her magic. Like, she's not sure if the pain is, like, real pain, or if it's just the magic, like, rebelling and putting Chaol in pain to prevent him from being healed.
Mm-hmm.
But they're talking about the fact that, like, Rowan healed him without any of the, like, pain issues.
But he also was KO'd.
But he also... yeah. Hey, it is very funny, because he says, Rowan healed me without any issues. And she's like, were you conscious? And he's like, no, I was nearly dead. And she's like, shut up, okay? Like, what are you talking about? Chaol says, you think I'm possessed? She's like, no, but pain can feel alive. Maybe this is no different. Maybe it does not want to let go. And he says, is my spine, like, even injured? She's like, yes, it is injured, but, like, the magic is preventing me from being able to heal you by, like, wrapping itself around the injury. And
he had the same thought as me
without the magic.
When I first read that, I was like, is he even fucking injured? Like, come on now. Are we just gonna rebel this magic from inside of him and he's gonna be like, woohoo, I could do shit again? And I was like, please, if it's that easy.
So her concern is basically like, if I'm going to heal you, you're gonna have to deal with this pain. My concern is if I can't really put you out, because if I can give you herbs and stuff to put you out, but she's like, I'm concerned of what it will do to you if you are trapped in your brain in a dream, like what it will do to your psyche while I work on you. And he's just kind of like, all right, if this is what I gotta do, like, fuck it, we're doing it.
She does try to pull a little more information out of him, like, so what exactly happened the day that you got your spine broken? And he's like, I'm not going to talk about this trauma. And she's like, all right, then we're going to do this the hard way, and hands him a leather strap. I wrote, Chaol is giving toxic man because he puts the leather strap in his mouth and says, fuck all. He's like, let's go. I'm about to be in pain.
She's trying to prod at the emotional damage as well to see, like, how receptive he's going to be to it. And he's like, nope. I'm just gonna be man and brute force my way through this pain. Sure. Whatever, dude.
She handed him a leather strap to bite down on since he refused to talk because pain is better than feelings. Did I write that or did you? Because I don't remember. It's very possible. It seems like something I would also write, but I do not recall writing.
I think you wrote it. We can check the edit history, but I think you wrote that.
Yeah, I did write.
No, you absolutely wrote that.
God, I'm kind of funny sometimes.
Yep, Chaol. This is why I'm like, it's better reading it this way, because I get bite-sized pieces of Chaol where I'm like, God fucking damn it, dude. Like, get over it. And then I go back to like, okay, fine, I can go read about Aelin and Rowan. And then by the time I get back to Chaol, I'm like, all right, what are you doing? I'm interested now.
It also, like, every scene with Chaol, you get, like, a little bit, like, it used to be that you'd get, like, a step forward and then he'd take, like, 4 back. This is feeling more like he's taking a step forward and he's still just at this spot. And now he's taking a step forward. He's still just there.
See, I think maybe that's one of the things that just I struggle with Chaol, is because it's like, I'll have 1 or 2 pages where I'll read it and I'll be like, oh, okay, like, he's trying, he's getting better. Like, I go, just this scene, I'm like, okay, great. I feel bad for him because he's like, I can ride a horse. Like, don't tell me that I'm not gonna, like, don't give me that hope. So, like, I feel bad. And then he, like, is, like, fucking unhelpful and is being a little bit of a shit. And then immediately after that, it's like, well, am I even really injured? And I'm like, oh, I feel bad for you again. And then 2 seconds later, he's like, fuck feelings, give me the bit. And I'm like, God fucking damn it, dude. Like, just, you're putting me through an emotional roller coaster where it's like, are you getting better or are you still just an asshole? Like, I can't tell. And you're giving me hope and then taking it away, and it's pissing me off. And
It's
that's
on the level of, like...
Tower of Dawn. Get it today. That's this whole book. It's great. It's so fun.
It's on the same level of the God fucking damn it, Dane from Fourth Wing. Just like,
every
God,
time you're just like,
fucking
God
damn it, Chaol.
God fucking damn it.
For those that know, that is very much a Fantasy Fangirls podcast.
We
Quote,
love Fantasy Fangirls.
God fucking damn it, Dane. So good.
We got to meet them and it was great. They're so nice.
Yeah, they're fucking sweethearts.
So nice.
So they continue their thing. She starts doing his, like, magic, pumping magic into him. Oh, he puts the thing in his mouth. And she goes, now would be the time to tell me to stop, Irene said, face grim. In case you'd rather discuss what happened these past few months. Chaol only laid on his stomach and slid the bit into his mouth. And you're like, all right, cool.
Great. Cool.
So we're going to check in with Nesrin for our last little bit of this section. As we know, Nesrin was meeting Sartak at the Eyrie. So she makes it there. She's at the Eyrie. All of these things are happening simultaneously, as we know.
Yep. All the time.
And they're discussing the rooks. She is saying how beautiful they are, how, like, wonderful these creatures look, how it, like, they're just enormous, and, like, Kadara? Is that how you say her? Kadara, his rook, is, like, kind of pleasant. Like, the rooks are
She's
pleasant.
a sweetheart.
We obviously get, like, our first interaction with flying creatures are all of the wyverns, and, like, they're bred to not be pleasant. So, like, for us to now get to...
Abraxos is still our sweetest baby boy.
Abraxos is a sweetheart. But, like, if you look at, like, that scenario, now we're being introduced to another flying creature, and it's these rooks, and they're, like, delightful as well. And you're like, oh, okay, this will be good. Like, this is gonna be good. We have more creatures that we're going to love outside of just Abraxos. We won't have to get, like, they're scary first and then we fall in love with them. We just, like, we can like them from the beginning, which is nice.
And they're basically like big griffins or eagles or whatever.
They're
like,
described as, like, enormous eagle or something.
They're big eagles. Just
large
sick.
birds.
Yeah. Birds you can fly on.
This is where Sartak then asks Nesrin if she wants to go for a ride. Like, would you like to go? And she's kind of like,
yes.
I'm really good.
Say yes.
You're very good with heights. He's
Doesn't
like,
matter.
It's fine.
Get on the rook.
Don't worry about it. And so she accepts. She goes. They get strapped into the saddle. Like, he straps her into the saddle to be like, this is how this happens. Like, you're going to be attached. Like, you can hold on to me if you want to feel safer, which she does. And then they are airborne, which, similar to when Manon goes first time on Abraxos, she gets that, like, stomach sinking, like, oh god, this is nervous, and then they hit, like, a certain spot, and she's like, this is great. That's kind of Nesrin's experience as well. She, like, immediately airborne is like, fuck. Oh, this is good. This is nice. We learn that Sartak, whatever the fuck. My brain is doing great. Sartak
3 hours. Almost
had
there.
his own separate agenda as well. So, like, we know Nesrin's trying to, like, get on Sartak's side to gain information. Sartak also wants to gain information from Nesrin. Because we don't know, like, Sartak may also not believe that his sister's death was just, like, a suicide.
Yeah.
Like, there might be something else involved. Like, we're learning that it's not just Cashin that believes that their sister just committed suicide. Like there's something fishy, and like all of the siblings are kind of like, something smells fishy here. Like something's not right.
Yeah, I just don't think that they've talked about, like, they're still so fresh.
The siblings
in their
have not
grief.
talked to each other about it, really.
It doesn't seem like it, no.
No.
And they sure as shit haven't talked to dad or mom about it, because they are in trauma mode.
Yeah. So
like, nothing's really being done.
Yeah.
So they're just kind of all individually, it seems like, doing their
Collecting.
own little, like, investigations to see what's going on. And Sartak is like, I'm starting with Nezrin, I guess. Or Nezrin's at least now the next person he's talking to.
Yeah. So this is where these chapters are kind of where Chaol and Nezrin both find out about what happens in the library. Sartak is the one that tells Nezrin about what occurred. So simultaneously, the two characters are finding out what happened in the library. Sartak let her know that a healer was killed, that the body was pretty much like a husk, that there is higher security, because Nezrin, of course, captain of the guard, question as well is like, have you increased security? Have you done this? Have you checked entrances to the Torre? Have you done pretty much all the same things that Chaol asked Irene during their session of like, have you increased security to make sure these healers are safe? Yeah, he lets her in on that information. Does she also let him in on that kind of stuff? They discuss Rifthold.
What she says back. Yeah. There's some passing of information. It's pretty like surface level of like neither of them trust each other yet, but they're like testing the waters of what they want to.
Yeah, Sartak asks about Rifthold's royal palace, how the glass palace fell. He then says, shattered by the Queen of Terrasen, your ally? And then Nezrin responds, my friend. Which is also like,
cute.
Okay. I think it's cute. Sartak is probably like, interesting.
Well, because they're all super suspicious of Aelin.
Yeah. They don't know.
Like, they don't know anything about her. They don't know if she's good or bad. They're going to hear conflicting reports from everywhere of like, she's an evil bitch queen. And also, she's great.
So Nezrin goes on to say, she is a good woman. Difficult, yes, but some might say the same of any royalty. Apparently, she found the former king of Otterland so difficult that she killed him. Careful words. Nezrin responds. The man was a monster and a threat to all. His second, Parrington, remains that way. She did Aurelia a favor. So this is like, this is the first time Nezrin is like actually defending Aelin. We had all of these interactions of the two characters together when they were fighting. And like Nezrin always kind of was like sort of on Aelin's side to Chaol. And this is the first time like out of that scenario, like she's also still defending. So you're like, okay, Nezrin actually likes Aelin. This is great. Like actually, like we like this.
Friends.
Nezrin also lets Sartak know that like she actually is powerful. Like she was able. She pretty much says that Dorian and Aelin together had a lot of power. So she's giving them kind of that tidbit of information. Like Dorian is also very magically powerful.
Don't fuck around and find out.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I don't think there's much else.
That's pretty much it.
Sartak gets out of this conversation. Sartak also then gives information to Nezrin too. So like Sartak talks about how the siblings had a dinner separate from their parents. They discussed kind of the happenings of what is going on with the Torre as well. Like they had a separate thing when they found out about it. They don't know what's going on. They're all kind of doing their own research.
But like about the Torre
attack,
like, break-in, basically. Yeah.
Not about the sister and it
like
them being connected.
Would have been a great time.
You'd think.
for them to have that conversation, but we didn't. So
This is when Nezrin also asks Sartak, do you think that your family will hear us out and will listen to us and trust us? And Sartak's like, not sure.
Couldn't tell you.
But he did say, I would listen, where you're like, we know Cashin would listen, or Caution, because he's reached out to Chaol for information. So we're in this like weird... Sartak doesn't believe that Cashin would be open to it. Like, he even says... So you get this information of, like, the siblings are all still working separately, like we said. Cashin is asking questions because he doesn't believe that his sister committed suicide. Like,
I mean, it's just very apparent that, like, none of the siblings trust each other. And it's probably just all of, like, the Coggins, you know, kids are all
because she even
and enemies at the same time.
She asked Sartak, she's like, what about Cashin?
Yeah.
And Sartak's response is, he is loyal to my father to a fault. He has never schemed, never backstabbed. I've done it, plotted and maneuvered against them all to get what I want. But Cashin, he may command the land armies and the horse lords. He may be brutal when required, but with my father, he is guileless. Guileless?
Guileless?
Guileless? He is guileless. There has never been a more loving or loyal son. When our father dies, I worry what the others will do to Cashin if he does not submit. Or worse, what his death will do to Cashin himself. So you get this idea that, like, Cashin doesn't question anything from Sartak, but then we also have the side of Cashin kind of questioning things, and you're like, they really don't fucking talk to each other.
They don't talk to each other, and they don't trust each other, so, like, I don't think any of them know what's going on.
Yeah.
At any moment. And, like, Chaol and Nezrin are the only ones that are really getting, and Irene are all getting
little snippets of information from each sibling.
Yeah.
And you're all, and, like, you as the reader are like, y'all are kind of on the same page, but if you just talk to each other a little bit.
Nah, can't do that. Can't let them know your next move.
Yeah.
How will you win otherwise?
This is where I think also Nezrin is told about Cashin having a thing for Irene. I think she's kind of brought into that loop. You get a little, like, it's pretty much catching Nezrin up to all the things that were happening, like that Chaol was finding out while Nezrin was with her family. Nezrin's now finding it out from Sartak. So, like, there's no real brand new information that we gather as the reader. It's just really she's being brought up to speed about everything.
The last thing that he asks her about is, like, does she know what Irene was looking for in the library with the books of because she had, with such dark interest in the theft of her books, he was asking about whether she knew what she was looking into, and she says no, even though she does absolutely know, because she doesn't want to tell him about the word keys and the word gates and all of that yet, which is fair.
Yes, there's a lot. They still don't know if they're on their side or if they're just going to turn and be, like, against them.
So they that's kind of the end of their grilling of each other and, like, fishing of information. And then they, like, get ready to go and fly. So she, like, actually gets on the Rook.
The Rook went and, like, killed something. They're in flight, and then the Rook was like, I need food. And Sartak, like, gave her the, like, go for it, get your food or whatever. And there's just, like, blood. Like, in this scene of them having a conversation, blood just, like, splatters across them. And he's just like, yeah, she's got to eat. And you're like, the fuck is happening? You're like, okay, this bird just picked out a thing from the ground and it's eating now. That's cool.
A heartbeat later, she was upon it, talons and beak spearing and slashing. The thing beneath her fought, twisting and whipping. A crunch, then silence. The Rook calmed, feathers puffing, then smoothing against the blood now spattered along her breast and neck. Some of it splashed onto Nezrin's boots as well. He says, "Be careful, Captain Philippe." There is beauty in my father's lands, but there is much lurking beneath the surface too. No shit.
Yeah. Not great.
Yeah, no shit. There's a lot happening right now. So that is the end of our section for today.
So that was Tandem Read Part 2. We got a lot of info dump. They were pretty heavy chapters. There was a lot of lore that we brought in. We talked to Brandon, which I think is a huge deal. We
That's awesome.
are super excited to start Part 3 and bring you guys along for that. Thank you so much for checking out our podcast. We hope you enjoyed your time here. You can find us at the Smut Peddlers on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok for additional content.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys. Bye.